Wealth Matters: The Teddy Bear Test, and Other Ways to Pass a State Tax Audit. Every year around this time, people grumble about their tax bills. This year, in doing so, they will reduce their tax bills substantially up to 13 percentage points for California residents, for instance, or nearly 9 points for those in New York and New Jersey. The people trying to take advantage of this strategy have always been a target of state tax collectors, but financial advisors say states like California and New York have stepped up their collection efforts, and they urge caution for anyone considering this approach. Wealthy taxpayers have long assumed that spending a minimum of 183 days, or 6 months plus 1 day, in a residence outside a high-tax state would be sufficient to avoid taxes in that state. But advisors note there are some states that have strict day counts, but California is much more subjective, said Chris Campbell, a principal at Deloitte Tax. Generally speaking, New York tax collectors assume you are still living in their state, even if you are spending the majority of your time elsewhere, and expect to be paid accordingly. In the tax world, you're guilty until you prove yourself innocent, said Timothy P. Noonan, a partner at Hodgson Russ, a law firm where he focuses on state and local tax law issues. If you can't prove, so much for flying off to Nevada or Florida and leaving your state tax bill behind. In the high-stakes game of tax collecting, states can seek unpaid tax bills that climb into the tens of millions of dollars. People who have the first requirement is proving your state residency. For most people, when the tax authorities asked for my records, they counted the stamps in my passport, he said. I overstayed my. Michael Kosnitsky, a partner at the law firm Pillsbury Winthrop Shaw Pittman, who divides his time among Colorado, Florida, and New York, said that counting days was insufficient and misleading. He pointed to New York's 5-part test for determining a person's residence for tax purposes, where time spent in the state is just one part. The state also, Tracy Kradish-Pumo, a managing director at the accounting firm BDO, who helps people establish Florida residency, said the latter was often known as the teddy bear test. Where do you keep your teddy bear at night? Is one of 50 questions her firm asks clients who want to move their tax residency, she said. The more boxes you can tick, the better, Ms. Pumo said. Sometimes, Florida is a preferred destination for residents in the Northeast looking to cut their tax bills, and tax authorities in their former states are monitoring such moves. When people change residency, advisors say, the first few years are the most important from an auditing perspective. The first one way to prove you are gone is to classify your former home as a rental. Mr. Kosnitsky, Edward Nicole, who lives in Miami Beach and has been a Florida resident since 2015, said he had been taxed on the same income by different states on 2 occasions. I ended up paying them both and then tried to get a refund from them, he said, adding that he had acted on his accountant's advice. In one instance, I am keenly aware that avoiding taxes is something people spend a lot of time on, he said. I don't mind paying. What someone does when he or she moves somewhere can also make a difference. Mr. Campbell said, but that presumption goes away pretty quickly if you're viewed as anything other than a seasonal tourist, he said. And that can be a fight. If you had sufficient connections to 2 states and another state audited you now have a fight on your hands, he said. Audit fees alone, generally, the type of income determines which state gets to tax it. Regular wages, but forms of compensation like unvested options and other forms of deferred compensation are trickier. They are taxed by the. Mr. Losey said he expected to see a lot of these audits over the next few years, given the run-up in stock prices. Typically, taxpayers will have to settle with each state but then amend their return in the original state before the 3-year statute of limitations has passed. As someone who has been subject to state audits, Mr. Nicole had advice for anyone considering establishing a new state residency. Anyone who moves out now is going to be audited. People should see it.
Raindrop, drip, drop top, top smoking, no cooking up. hot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park.